أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، حبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا بالقاسم المصطفى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين. عظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بمصابنا بأبي عبد الله الحسين عليه السلام وأهل بيته وأصحابه، وجعلنا وإياكم من الآخرين بثأره على يدي إمام منصور مهدي من آل بيت محمد. اللهم صل على محمد. We continue inshallah today our discussion about Tawheed, which we started yesterday. And before I continue, I'd just like to recap about what we talked about yesterday. Anybody can tell me what we talked about yesterday regarding Tawheed? Just to see whether people, they were listening or were in the majlis. The essence of Allah. Ahsant. Yeah, we talk about that Allah, essence of Allah. Ahsant, Jazakallah khair. Anybody else? Sifatillah. We talk about briefly about Sifatillah. We said we're going to talk about them in more details later. Ali? Yeah, we talk about the Surah Al-Tawheed, Qul huwa Allahu ahad, and we discuss about that part of the Surah, Qul huwa Allahu ahad. Okay, today inshallah we continue that discussion. We said yesterday that in that holy verse, the word He may refer to the essence of Allah because it's in the third singular verb, helping verb, and Allah refer to Asma Allah al-Husna, and we said that we cannot comprehend the essence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because if we comprehend it, that our mind will include the essence of Allah, which is not possible, because He is the creator, we are the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Today I'm going to talk about a bit more about the word Ahad, and then some of the proofs about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah's existence, because this issue, this question always raised here in the West and thing. A lot of people, for instance, they don't believe in Allah, or they are not sure and things. So for us, especially the youth, for Muslim youth, they should be equipped with knowledge to know about their Lord. And as we said, the most important thing for us is aqaid, and the most important part of aqaid is tawheed, because everything is linked. For instance, adil is linked to tawheed, nubuwwah is linked to tawheed, imama and qiyamah or mi'ad, all of these aqaid are linked to tawheed. And the same thing with furu' ad-din, or our actions, our a'mal. Without proper belief, without proper aqidah, our a'mal is not accepted. That's why we put so much on imamah, because the other school of thought, they don't believe in imamah, while imamah is important part of our system of faith, system of aqaid. So probably one of the most important hadith which talk about the meaning of Tawheed, or Allah Wahid, or Allah Ahad, is a narration by Imam Ali alayhi salam. Say, at the battle of Jamal, an Arabi came to the Imam alayhi salawatullah wa salam, and he said to him, "O Amir al-Mu'mineen, is Allah one?" And the companions surrounding Imam Ali alayhi salam say, "Oh Arabi, what you are saying? Can you see that the Imam, he is planning for the battlefield and thing, he's so busy. Is this the time to discuss that sort of issue?" And the Imam reply was amazing to him. He said, "Leave leave the man, actually he told them, we are fighting them for the sake of Tawheed. What we are doing, what we are fighting the other side, is because they don't understand Tawheed. If they would understood Tawheed well, they would not fight the Imam of their time. Imam Ali is the proof of Allah, is the Hujjatullah. And because of their lack of knowledge, either intentional or unintentional, they didn't believe, they didn't accept the leadership of the Imam of the time, Imam Ali alayhi salam. They end up fighting the Imam of the time. Therefore, Imam Ali said to his companion, let the Arab ask the question and I'm going to explain to him, because this is the most important thing. And as we mentioned yesterday, if we understand Tawheed properly, all our actions should act according to our understanding of Tawheed. And it is quite serious. So the Imam replied to the Arab by saying, there are 4 possible meanings of Allahu Wahid. 2 of them are not acceptable and 2 of them are acceptable. So he said the first one, Allah Wahid, means like numbers. 1, 2, 3, واحد, اثنين, ثلاثة. And this is not acceptable, of course, because when we say Allah Wahid, Allah is not a number, and therefore this meaning of Wahid is not acceptable. Say Babul A'dad, I say Alam Tara in Quran, say لقد كفر الذين قالوا إن الله ثالث ثلاثة. So that's one meaning which is not acceptable of Wahid. The second meaning of Wahid, he said, which is not acceptable as well, he said Wahid min al-jins, from the type. Like he say one of the human being, one of the animals, one of this. The various creations, ism jins. And that is not acceptable, obviously, because if you say Allah is one of something, that means He resembles that type which you are talking about. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nothing like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and therefore that meaning of Wahid is not acceptable. Then he explained the 2 other meaning which is acceptable of Wahid. The first one, he said, Wahid means ليس كمثله شيء, none like him, and this is acceptable. When you say Wahid, means Wahid, that there is no second for him. Wahid, there's nothing resembling Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the first meaning which is acceptable. That means 3 Wahid now we have. And the 4th one Iman mentioned, which is acceptable, say Wahid means it's not compound, as we mentioned, basit al-haqiqa. That means we mentioned yesterday, said like for say human being, we are not one in the sense, we are one body, but our body get many components. We get eyes, ears, we get brain, we get heart, and all these resemble together to make our body human being. So we are compound, we are not simple. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't need eyes, for instance, to see, doesn't need ears. All of him will see, all of him will hear, all of him will talk, all of him, all the actions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't need like equipment. When we do things we said equipment, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is beyond that, because that's considered to be deficient, there is some defects, because and we try to complete it. For instance, if we want to go from one point to another quickly, we cannot do it by our body. We have to use a car. So that means there is a defect in us, because we cannot go. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't need to go from A to B, because He's everywhere. And therefore, that's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is perfect in every sense. Therefore, He doesn't need anything to complete His as we do. We need to complete everything we have defects in using something like even our body as compound. So that's the 4 meaning, and that gives us an understanding, a proper understanding of Tawheed. What does it mean when we say Tawheed Allah? Unfortunately, the other school of thought, because of lack of understanding, they end up like claiming something like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala appear like a human being. He has no beard, well shaved, and he ride on a donkey or something like that. I give a physical explanation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ta'ala Allah an dhalika uluwan kabira. So this is about Ahad. Some of the Mufassirin, they say, they differentiate between Ahad and Wahid, and they say Wahid refer to the third meaning which I mentioned, that's mean ليس كمثله شيء, ليس له ثاني, and Ahad refer to the fourth meaning, that's mean he's بسيط الحقيقة, he's got simple nature, doesn't need to be compound. That's some people, they refer to it as التوحيد الأحدي والتوحيد الواحدي. Now, one of the interesting things in Quran doesn't mention about a proof of the existing of Allah. Always talking about Tawheed, doesn't talk, because the belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is like something like innate. It's within ourselves. As in Arabic we said, bil fitra, we believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and doesn't need. So Quran doesn't talk about this aspect a lot. There are some I say, أَفِي شَكٌّ خَالِقِ السَّمَاءِ فَاطِرِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Is there a doubt in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who has created heavens and earth? But for the purpose of those people who want to argue with us, there's a number of proofs given by the philosophers on those people of, they say, Ashab al-Kalam, those people who give a speech and defend Islam. They created or they established or deduced from the verses of the Quran and the hadith of the Prophet and them alayhim salam, a number of proofs, or depending on the logical argument. So I'm going briefly to mention these proofs. Not all of them, some of them are quite complex and philosophical, so I'm not going to get into them. I'll mention the simple one that the audience would understand. The first one, they call it, is the reasoning proof of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, the Arabs in the desert, they have a saying when you see, for instance, a camel in the desert, you see the footstep has like the footprint of the camel on the sand in there. If somebody come after the camel has passed through and you see the footstep of the camel, what does that give you? What information gives you about it? If you see a footstep of a camel in the desert, what does that mean? That's where a camel has passed from that point. And if somebody tells you, oh no, probably this is just the wind was moving and has created a footstep like of a camel, do you believe in him? You don't believe in him, because if it's probably it's not going to be so exact, and then maybe the spacing, you can create a lot of argument against it, and you definitely believe, if you see the footstep, that there's an animal or a camel, if you know exactly how the foot of the camel look like, that has passed from that point. So our mind always, when we see something, we jump into the conclude that there's somebody either has passed or somebody has made that thing. For instance, let's give example of from our life. If somebody see a chair in front of us, and somebody comes and tell you that this chair has been formed like by coincidence, it's not made by anybody, would you believe in him? Why is that? Why we don't believe? Somebody say, oh, might be a tree has fallen, and then there's some fire which cut some pieces in the tree and something, and it's not possible, because if you see all the possibility, you see, for instance, the chair has like 4 legs. If there is 3, it starts rocking. You will see maybe the wood has been smoothened. You might see some decoration on the. So every aspect of this, you see, for instance, the size of the chair has been created to fit a human being. It's not very small or very huge. So maybe this is for something else. So you can see the purpose of this, and So using that sort of argument, everything you see, there is a cause of it. There is somebody has done it. And then if you look at the whole universe has been created in such a perfect, combinations, all the stars, the way they run the self. If you look at the earth, you look at whatever you see that it has been, cannot come out of nothing. There must be something. There is counter argument with this. They say, oh, if the creator, if somebody has created us, who has created the creator? They raise that argument, say, if we've been created, been made by somebody, who has made that being, who has made us? That question is wrong in itself, because everybody or being has created in this world need a creator, because he is imperfect or he's compound. He was not there and become there, so he need a reason. For instance, every one of us at one moment we were not in this life, and then suddenly we came to this life because our parents. So our parents become a reason of our existence, but our parents has not created us. They created as well by their parents, because if you keep saying the creator has a creator, that's one may need a creator, then you go forever, and therefore you don't get an answer. So the answer, there must be a one which doesn't need to be created, because he was there forever, and he has created us, and through his reason we came into existence. And that's why in philosophy, I don't want to go into it, say wajib al-wujud and mumkin al-wujud. Wajib al-wujud is the one who is outside time, because he encompasses time and he encompasses space, so he doesn't need to be created. Because we are limited, we need to be created, and thus we came through some process, some reasoning effect. That's the first proof, which is the proof of reasoning. The second proof about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the proof of Burhan al-Nadam, the proof of organization. The fact that we see everything in this whole universe is so well organized. If you see, for instance, the atomic structure, electrons, protons, things, it's built in so precise manner. For instance, they say if the electrons has a charge a bit higher or a bit lower, then that would not support the matter in total. Matter would not be existed. So it's so precise. If you look, for instance, our Earth, how far is it from the sun, from the moon? You say it's in a perfect position. Everything you see in this universe, as the ulama discovered, every day they discover a new amazing thing about this universe, which shows this universe has been created in a perfect manner. That sort of organization tells us that the creator has been created by somebody who is perfect. He's Hakim, he's wise, he's powerful, he's knowledgeable, and then you can create all Asma'ullah al-Husna from this proof of organization. And the more you get into science, the more you look into this thing, you can see everything. Even if you see, for instance, the world of animals, the world of insects, the world of, if you look at the bees, how do they behave, how do they build there. If you look, for instance, something like very small creature, you can see they do, like ants, for instance, they do amazing things. How they build their houses, how do they communicate. You see everything in this universe, and that tells us that our God, the one who has created, He's Hakim, He's powerful, He's knowledgeable, He's wise, and all these Asma Allah al-Husna. This is the second proof. The third proof is very interesting one, which is normally it's not mentioned widely in the books if you read some books, but if you have knowledge in science and thing, I would call it Burhan al-Qasd, the proof of intention. There are something in the physical world, you can see that the matter behaves against the general law of physics in order to serve life. I'm going to give two examples about this, and that show us the intention. The one who created this world has intention. At some cases, the law of physics need to be broken in order to serve life. I'm going to give the first example about water. We all know water, those who study physics. I think most of you maybe study some physics, that if you get a matter, for instance, water is the example I'm going to talk about. Water, if you cool water, bring water at, let's say, room temperature, 20 degrees, and you start cooling the water. This is a general physical, not applied to water. All like metals and things behave in the same way. If you cool, for instance, iron, it starts shrinking. If you heat it, it starts expanding. Do you agree with me? Have you studied that in physics? Usually, when you get heat, the matter try to expand. When you cool it, try to contract. Water behave in the same way, but it behave in the same. For instance, we get water at 20 degrees. You start cooling it, and it's become like. Until 4 degrees, it behave in that way. That means its volume start contracting. At 4 degrees, it start expanding. Suddenly, at 4 degrees, if you keep cooling it, it's started. When it's become ice, it's become less dense than water because of the expansion, and that's a break in the behavior between 4 degrees and 0 make the ice less dense than the water. What that will do, like in the oceans, when very cold temperature and the ice is formed, the ice will float. Because it will float, it will protect all the species in the ocean. Have the water continue to increase density, the ice would have sunk, and the whole ocean would become ice, and all the creature would have died. So here you can see the intention. There is a break, sort of reversal of the physical law in order to serve life. This one needs intention, isn't it? Because you can see there is a clear reversal in the law in order to serve life. There is another one. I know my time is over. I'm very talkative. So the other one is what they say, active transport. You know, in plants, for instance, the plants try to get all the nutrients from water, from the soil, and usually the physical law that the concentration moves from high concentration to low concentration into the cells. But in plants, because plants in need of nutrition, usually the nutrition move from low concentration to high concentration against the physical law again in order to serve life in the plant. So here the plant will do some action, some energy in order to reverse the process in order to serve life. And that's, I would call it, the proof of intention, qasd. There is intention here by the Creator to reverse the law of nature in order to save life. I think my time is over. I'll take just a few minutes of mentioning. Therefore, as I said, I'll continue inshallah on Tawheed, very important topic, as we said, the most important topic for us to believe in, so that our hearts is full with belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what we call it Tawheed Nadari, it's the theoretical, but when we apply Tawheed in our day-to-day life, we have to follow the guidance of those who reach that level of Tawheed, and that's the Imam. The Imam of the time is the one who gets the perfect Tawheed in his heart, and the one who can guide us towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm going to give example for tonight. al-Banin alayhi salam. al-Banin wasn't ma'soom. She was the wife of the Imam of the time, Imam Ali alayhi salam. but she was a wise woman which understood Tawheed properly, understood how to believe in the Imam of the time, and she even, we know all the story about al-Banin alayhi salam, but she performed perfectly in complete obedience to the Imam of the time. And when Imam Ali alayhi salam has passed away or is martyred, she followed that guidance to Imam Hassan and to Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And you can imagine, we all know, the most important thing for any woman is the children. The most love in the life is the love of a mother to her children. But you can see al-Banin alayhi salam, when her children, they went to the battlefield with Imam Hussein and they all martyred. And when the caravan of Imam Hussein alayhi salam has came to Medina, and then Bishr ibn Hadlam, the one who broke the news to her, and she asked him, she didn't ask about her children, she asked him, tell me about Hussein. And he said, Azzamallahu laki al-ajr bi Ja'far, her first son. I said, I didn't ask you about Ja'far, I asked you about Imam Hussein. I said, Azzamallahu laki al-ajr bi Abdullah. And then he started counting all the four. But you can see the belief of al-Banin in her heart, that she didn't want to hear about her children, although in nature, naturally, the most beloved beings to her, the children. But because of her faith, it's because of her strong belief, all she was concerned is about the Imam of the time, Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And we know from the story what happened to al-Banin alayhi salam when she realized the martyrdom of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah, to give us tawfiq to follow the footsteps of al-Banin, her children, and all people who fought with Imam Hussein alayhi salam with complete yaqeen and surety in their hearts towards the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa alihi at-tahirin.